The smell of engine oil and burnt metal was home to Park Do-hoon. He lay on his back under a broken cargo hauler, his hands covered in black grease, working on a fuel line that had seen better days. The ship belonged to a Krethian merchant who had called him Dirt Creature 3 times in the last hour. Do-hoon did not care. Credits were credits, and humans could not be picky on Nexus Station. Nexus Station floated in the space between 3 major trade routes. It was massive, home to millions of beings from hundreds of species. The upper levels gleamed with crystal towers and floating gardens. The lower levels, where Do-hoon lived and worked, were dark and cramped. Water dripped from pipes. The air recyclers worked poorly. But rent was cheap, and nobody asked questions. Do-hoon was 32 years old. He had left Earth's outer colonies when he was 20, chasing dreams of adventure among the stars. 12 years later, he was still chasing. His small repair shop earned enough to keep him fed and housed, nothing more. He was good at his work. Some said he was the best unlicensed mechanic on the station, but being good meant nothing when you were human. Humans had joined the galactic community only 200 years ago. To species that had traveled the stars for 10,000 years, humans were children. Worse, they were loud, messy, emotional children who bred too fast and asked too many questions. Most species tolerated humans. Few respected them. Do-hoon finished the repair and slid out from under the ship. The Krethian merchant, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, inspected his work with obvious doubt. "It will hold," Do-hoon said. "New fuel line, cleaned the injection ports, replaced 2 filters. She will run smooth for another year." The Krethian made a sound of disgust. "Human work. Probably fall apart before I leave the dock." "Then do not pay me until you reach your destination," Do-hoon replied calmly. He had learned long ago that anger solved nothing. "Send the credits when you arrive safely." The Krethian stared at him, surprised by the offer. Finally, it transferred half the payment to Do-hoon's account. "The rest when I arrive. If I arrive." Do-hoon nodded and watched the ship lift off. It would arrive safely. He had made sure of it. Machines never lied to him. They told him their problems through sounds and vibrations, through the way they moved and the heat they produced. Other mechanics used scanners and diagnostic tools. Do-hoon used his hands and his instincts. He could not explain how he knew what was wrong. He simply knew. He was cleaning his tools when a woman walked into his shop. She was human, which was unusual. Most humans on the lower levels avoided each other, ashamed of their shared status. But this woman walked like she owned the station. Her hair was cut short, her clothes were expensive, and her eyes missed nothing. "Park Do-hoon," she said. It was not a question. "Who wants to know?" "My name is Yoon Nari. I am an information broker." She looked around his small shop with an expression that was not quite disgust, not quite pity. "I have a job for you." Do-hoon laughed. "I fix ships. I do not need information." "You need credits," Nari said, "and opportunity. I am offering both." She pulled out a small projector and placed it on his workbench. A hologram appeared, showing a ship unlike anything Do-hoon had ever seen. It was beautiful in a way that made his chest tight. The hull was dark, almost black, but light seemed to move beneath its surface like living things. Strange symbols covered every inch of it. The design was elegant and alien, clearly not built by any species he knew. "This is the Wandering Star," Nari said. "It was found 3 weeks ago in the Void Rim. A salvage team pulled it from a dead zone where no ship should have survived. It is Architect." Do-hoon stopped breathing. The Architects were legend. They had existed long before any current species had crawled from their home worlds. They had seeded the galaxy with life, built wonders that still defied understanding, and then vanished without explanation. Finding Architect technology was like finding treasure from the gods. "Impossible," he said. Verified by 12 independent experts, Nari replied. The ship is real, and it is being auctioned tomorrow at Crimson Hall. Crimson Hall was the most exclusive auction house on Nexus Station. Royalty and warlords bid there. Presidents and crime lords. The minimum entry fee was more than Do-hoon earned in 10 years. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Nari smiled. It was not a warm smile. Because the auction house cannot open the ship. Its systems reject every attempt at interface. 50 species have tried. 50 species have failed. But I have a theory. She leaned closer. The architects did not just create random life. They designed it. They designed us, Do-hoon, humans. We were their final project, their successors. I believe that ship will only respond to human touch. Do-hoon's heart was beating fast now. Even if that is true, humans cannot bid at Crimson Hall. We are banned from the upper levels. Nari reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. It was a biometric mask, military grade, worth more than his entire shop. This will make you look Veloci, tall, pale, perfectly acceptable to the auction house. I also have an identity chip that will pass any scan. You go in, you touch the ship, and if I am right, it bonds with you. Architect law is older than any galactic treaty. If the ship accepts you, no one can take it away. And if you are wrong, then you go to prison for infiltrating a restricted area, and I lose my investment. Nari shrugged. But I am not wrong. Do-hoon looked at the hologram again. The wandering star seemed to call to him. He had spent his whole life fixing other people's ships, dreaming of the stars from the gutters. This was his chance. Maybe his only chance. I have no credits for the bid, he said. We will figure that out if the bond works, Nari replied. First, we need to get you inside. Do-hoon should have said no. The plan was insane. The risks were enormous. But when he looked at that ship, he felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. When do we start? He asked. Nari's smile widened. Right now. The auction is in 18 hours and we have much to do. She began explaining the layout of Crimson Hall, the security systems, the guest list. Do-hoon listened carefully, memorizing every detail. Tomorrow he would walk among giants. Tomorrow he would reach for a dream that should have been impossible. Tomorrow, everything would change. The biometric mask felt wrong against Do-hoon's skin. It was thin, almost like a second layer of flesh, but it changed everything about his face. When he looked in the mirror, a stranger stared back. His skin was pale white instead of warm brown. His eyes were silver instead of dark. His features were sharp and angular, like a statue carved from ice. He looked Veloci now. He looked like he belonged in Crimson Hall. Nari had spent hours teaching him how to move. The Veloci were proud and quiet. They did not smile. They did not make quick movements. They walked like every step was a gift to the floor beneath them. Do-hoon practiced until his muscles ached, until the movements felt almost natural. Now he stood in the entrance hall of Crimson Hall, trying not to stare. The place was beyond beautiful. Crystal chandeliers floated in zero gravity high above, casting rainbow light across the walls. The floor was made of something that looked like liquid gold, solid enough to walk on but rippling with each step. Delegates from 50 species moved through the space, wearing clothes and jewelry worth more than entire planets. Do-hoon's borrowed Veloci robes felt cheap in comparison, though Nari had assured him they would pass inspection. Stay calm, Nari's voice said in his ear. She had given him a tiny communication device, hidden deep in his ear canal. You look perfect. Just remember to move slowly and speak as little as possible. Do-hoon gave the smallest nod, not daring to reply. Security drones floated everywhere, scanning guests with blue light. He had passed 2 checkpoints already. The identity chip had worked. The mask had held. But his heart would not stop racing. He found his assigned seat in the main auction hall. The room was shaped like an amphitheater, with rows of seats rising in a half-circle around a central platform. The platform was empty now, but soon the items for sale would be displayed there. Do-hun sat perfectly still, his hands folded in his lap, watching the other guests through half-closed eyes. A massive creature sat 3 rows ahead. It had gray skin like stone, 4 yellow eyes, and wore armor covered in weapons. Do-hun recognized the species from news reports. Morath, conquerors. They had destroyed 17 civilizations in the last 1,000 years. "That is Commander Tavik," Nari whispered in his ear. "He controls the Morath Third Fleet. Very dangerous, very rich. He will be your main competition." Do-hun did not respond. He simply watched and waited. The auction began with small items, ancient artwork, mining rights to distant moons, a collection of weapons from a dead species. Each item sold for amounts that made Do-hun feel sick. He could live for 100 years on what they spent on a single painting. Then the lights dimmed, the platform opened, and the wandering star rose into view. Do-hun forgot to breathe. The ship was more beautiful in person than the hologram had shown. It was not large, perhaps big enough for a crew of 5, but every line was perfect. The dark hull seemed to drink in light, and those strange symbols glowed with soft blue fire. The ship looked alive. It looked like it was dreaming. The auctioneer, a being with too many limbs and a voice like silk, began the presentation. Lot 47, a vessel of architect origin, recovered from the Void Rim. Estimated age, 10,000 years. Condition unknown. All attempts to access the interior have failed. The ship's systems reject external interface. Sold as is, with no guarantee of function. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Commander Tavik leaned forward in his seat, his yellow eyes burning with hunger. Other wealthy beings shifted and whispered. Everyone wanted the ship. No one knew what it could do. "We will begin the bidding at 100 million credits." The numbers climbed fast. 200 million, 300, 500. Do-hun watched in despair. Even if the ship accepted him, he could never pay such amounts. His total savings would not cover a single minute of this bidding war. But then something strange happened. Each time Commander Tavik raised his bid, the ship's hull flickered. The soft blue glow dimmed and turned angry red for just a moment. No one else seemed to notice. They were watching the numbers, watching each other. But Do-hun saw. The ship was reacting to Tavik. It did not want him. "It knows," Do-hun whispered. "What?" Nari's voice was sharp. "The ship knows who is bidding. It does not like the Morath." There was silence on the communication line. Then Nari spoke again, her voice tense with excitement. "Can you get closer? Can you touch it?" Do-hun looked at the platform. Security drones circled it. Armed guards stood at every entrance. Touching the ship during an active auction was a serious crime. He would be arrested instantly. His disguise would fail under a deep scan. Everything would be over. But the ship was calling to him. He could feel it now, a gentle pull in his chest. Like a voice he could almost hear. It was waiting. It had been waiting for so long. The bidding reached 1 billion credits. Commander Tavik roared his final offer. The auctioneer raised his many limbs to close the sale. Do-hun stood up. Every eye in the room turned to him. He walked down the steps toward the platform, moving slowly, like a veloci would. The guards raised their weapons. The drones moved to intercept. But Do-hun did not stop. "Sir, you must return to your seat," a guard said. Do-hun ignored him. He reached the platform, climbed the steps, and pressed his bare hand against the ship's hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then light exploded from the ship. The symbols blazed white. Energy pulsed outward, knocking guards and drones aside. Do-hun felt warmth spread through his body, through his mind, through his soul. And then he heard a voice. It was not sound. It was not thought. It was something deeper, something older. The voice spoke directly to his heart. Finally, a maker's child, I have been waiting for you. Do-hoon's disguise failed. The biometric mask could not handle the energy surge. It peeled away, revealing his true face, his human face. Gasps and shouts filled the room. Commander Tavik rose from his seat, roaring in fury. "A human!" someone screamed. "How did a human get in here?" Security swarmed him. Hands grabbed his arms, weapons pointed at his chest, but the ship's light wrapped around him like armor, and no one could pull him away from the hull. The voice spoke again, this time through the ship's external speakers, so everyone could hear. "This is my bonded operator under architect law. He is mine, and I am his. Any who harm him will face the justice of those who came before." The room fell silent. Architect law. Words from a civilization that had existed before any of them were born. Words that no treaty could overrule, no power could ignore. Do-hoon looked at the crowd of aliens who had spent their lives looking down on his species. He was still surrounded by guards. He was still in terrible danger. But for the first time in his life, he did not feel small. "My name is Park Do-hoon," he said, "and this ship is mine." The auction hall had turned into chaos. Guards shouted orders. Drones flew in circles, their programming confused by the architect energy. Wealthy guests pushed toward the exits, afraid of what might happen next. Commander Tavik stood in the middle of it all, his stone-gray face twisted with rage. "Arrest him!" Tavik roared. "He is a criminal, a trespasser. The bond means nothing." But the guards hesitated. The ship's light still surrounded Do-hoon like a shield. Every time someone tried to touch him, the light pushed them gently away. It did not hurt anyone. It simply refused to let them close. A new figure appeared on the platform. It was Broker Celis, the overseer of Crimson Hall. Celis was a thin creature with silver scales and eyes like black glass. He moved with the calm of someone who had seen many strange things in his long career. "Everyone, please remain calm," Celis said. His voice was soft but carried through the entire room. "We have a situation that requires careful thought." "There is nothing to think about," Tavik shouted. "The human broke into this auction using false identity. He must be punished, and the ship must be given to the highest legitimate bidder, to me." Celis tilted his head, studying Do-hoon with those dark eyes. "The human did break our rules. That is true. But he also awakened a ship that has rejected every other species for 10,000 years. Architect law is clear on this matter. A bonded operator cannot be separated from their vessel by force." "Architect law is ancient nonsense," Tavik growled. "It has no power here." "Does it not?" Celis asked quietly. "The architects built this station. They built the jump gates that make all galactic trade possible. Their laws are written into the foundation of our civilization. Do you truly wish to test what happens when we ignore them?" Tavik fell silent. Even his rage could not overcome the fear of the unknown. No one knew what the architects had been capable of. Their technology still worked perfectly after 10,000 years. What other systems might still be watching? Celis turned to Do-hoon. "You have created a problem for me, human. The bond appears real. I cannot deny that. But you also committed crimes to be here, and you certainly cannot pay the auction price." "What do you suggest?" Do-hoon asked. His voice was steady, though his heart was pounding. "A compromise." Celis held up one thin finger. "Architect law protects your bond, but it does not give you the ship for free. You must still pay the minimum bid. That is 50 million credits. You have one station cycle to gather this amount. 24 standard hours. If you pay, the ship is legally yours. If you fail, we will consider the bond incomplete, and the ship goes to Commander Tavik." Tavik smiled, showing teeth like broken rocks. "The human has no money. He lives in the lower levels like vermin. This is already over." Do-hoon felt sick. 50 million credits. He had less than 2,000 in his account. Even if he sold everything he owned, even if he borrowed from everyone he knew, he could not get close to that number. Nari had promised they would figure it out, but how? One more thing, Celis said. The human is banned from Crimson Hall. He may not return until he has the credits, and if he attempts to flee with the ship, we will destroy it and him together. The light around Do-hoon flickered. The ship was still protecting him, but even ancient technology had limits. He could not fight an entire station. I understand, Do-hoon said. 24 hours. The guards escorted him out of Crimson Hall. They were not gentle, but they did not hurt him. Behind him, he could still feel the ship's presence like a warm hand on his shoulder. A voice whispered in his mind, I am sorry I cannot help you more. My systems are still waking, but I believe in you, Maker's child. You will find a way. What is your name? Do-hoon asked silently. The beings who made me called me Arya. It means architect, research, and interface agent. But names are just sounds. What matters is what we do. Arya. Do-hoon tested the name. It felt right. I will come back for you. I know you will. The guards pushed him out of the upper levels. The clean air and beautiful lights disappeared, replaced by the familiar darkness of the lower station. Nari was waiting for him in his shop, her face pale with worry. I watched everything on the security feeds, she said. Do-hoon, I am so sorry. I did not expect 50 million credits in 24 hours, Do-hoon interrupted. Can you find that much? Nari laughed, but there was no humor in it. I am good, but I am not a miracle worker. Even the richest criminals I know could not move that much money so fast. Do-hoon sat down heavily on his workbench. His tools lay around him, the only things he truly owned. He had spent 12 years building his skills, learning every secret of machines and engines. And now all of that meant nothing. He would lose the ship. He would lose Arya. He would go back to fixing other people's dreams while his own faded away. There is one option, Nari said slowly. But you will not like it. Do-hoon looked up. Tell me. The underground circuits, illegal repair challenges. Mechanics bet their skills against impossible machines. The winners take everything. The losers become slaves. Nari swallowed. The prizes are massive. If you win enough rounds, you could have 50 million by morning. And if I lose, you belong to whoever bet against you. Forever. Do-hoon thought about the Krethian merchant who had called him a dirt creature. He thought about all the aliens who had laughed at humans, dismissed them, treated them like animals. He thought about Arya, waiting alone in that auction hall, trusting him to return. He stood up and grabbed his tools. Take me to the circuits, he said. Nari stared at him. You understand what you are risking? I understand what I am risking if I do nothing. Do-hoon met her eyes. I am the best mechanic on this station, maybe the best in this sector. Tonight, everyone else is going to learn that. Nari nodded slowly. Then she smiled, and this time there was real warmth in it. Follow me, she said, and try not to die. They walked into the darkness of the lower levels, toward the sounds of engines and cheering crowds, toward danger, toward hope. 24 hours, 50 million credits, one chance. Do-hoon was ready. The underground circuits were held in an old cargo bay deep in the station's forgotten levels. Hundreds of beings crowded around a central arena where broken machines waited like wounded animals. The air smelled of smoke and sweat and desperation. This was where fortunes were made and lives were lost. This was where Do-hoon would find his 50 million credits. Nari paid his entry fee and registered him for the first challenge. The circuit masters looked at him with amusement. A human mechanic. How funny. How pathetic. Humans were not known for their technical skills. They were known for being loud and emotional and short-lived. First round, the announcer called. Human challenger versus a Krethian power core. The core has been damaged in 7 different ways. Find all 7 problems and fix them. Time limit, 15 minutes. The Krethian record is 12 minutes. Do-hoon walked to the workstation. The power core sat before him, a complex machine of crystals and metal. It was beautiful technology, far beyond anything humans had invented. Most mechanics would need scanners and diagnostic tools to even begin understanding it. Do-hoon just listened. He placed his hands on the core and closed his eyes. The machine spoke to him through vibrations and heat patterns, through the tiny sounds of components struggling to work. One by one, he found the problems. A cracked crystal, a misaligned conductor, a blocked coolant channel. He worked quickly but carefully, his hands moving with confidence built from 12 years of practice. He finished in 11 minutes. The crowd went silent. The announcer checked the core 3 times before confirming the result. All 7 problems found and fixed. A new record by a human. Do-hoon collected his winnings, 50,000 credits. A fortune to most people. Not nearly enough. Next round, he said. The challenges grew harder. A Veloci navigation computer corrupted by cosmic radiation. A Morath weapon system that had been deliberately sabotaged. An ancient jump drive that no one had successfully activated in 50 years. Each time, the crowd expected him to fail. Each time, Do-hoon proved them wrong. Word spread through the lower levels. A human was dominating the circuits. Species who had mocked humanity's primitive technology came to watch in disbelief. They saw Do-hoon rebuild a Krethian hyperdrive in 11 minutes, a task their best engineers needed hours to complete. They saw him bring dead machines back to life, with nothing but his hands and his instincts. By the 10th round, Do-hoon had earned 30 million credits. His arms ached, his eyes burned, but he could not stop. Arya's voice whispered in his mind, distant but warm. "You are doing wonderfully, Maker's child, but be careful. I sense danger approaching." "What kind of danger?" Do-hoon asked silently. Before Arya could answer, the crowd parted. 3 figures pushed through, wearing the armor of Commander Tavok's personal guard. They carried weapons that glowed with deadly energy. "The commander sends his regards," the lead guard said. "He wants you to know that you will not reach the auction house. You will not claim the ship, and you will not survive this night." Nari stepped between Do-hoon and the guards. "This is neutral ground. Violence is forbidden in the circuits." "We do not care about your rules, human." The guard raised his weapon. Nari moved faster than Do-hoon could follow. She pulled something from her sleeve, threw it, and dove aside. The object exploded in a flash of light, blinding the guards. By the time they recovered, Nari was dragging Do-hoon through a side door. "Run!" she shouted. They ran through narrow corridors and maintenance tunnels. Behind them, the guards followed, their heavy boots echoing on metal floors. Nari led the way, somehow knowing every turn and shortcut in this maze. "How do you know this place so well?" Do-hoon gasped. "I grew up here," Nari replied. "The lower levels were my home before I became a broker. I know every shadow and every hiding spot." They reached a dead end. A solid wall blocked their path. The guard's footsteps grew closer. Nari pressed her hand against a hidden panel. The wall slid open, revealing a small chamber filled with old equipment. They slipped inside, and the wall closed behind them. Silence. The guards ran past, their footsteps fading into the distance. Do-hoon sat down, breathing hard. His whole body was shaking. "Why are you helping me? You barely know me. You could have stayed safe." Nari was quiet for a moment. Then she sat beside him, her face tired in the dim light. "I was born on Earth's outer colonies, like you. I watched my family work themselves to death, trying to be accepted by aliens who would never respect them. I swore I would be different. I would learn their games and beat them at their own rules." She looked at him with fierce eyes. "You bonded with an architect ship, Do-hoon. A human bonded with technology from the greatest civilization ever known. Do you understand what that means for our species?" Do-hoon shook his head. It means everything they believed about us was wrong. Humans are not primitive newcomers. We are not accidents of evolution. We were designed by the architects themselves. Nari's voice trembled with emotion. If you claim that ship, if you prove what we really are, it changes everything. Every human in the galaxy will walk taller tomorrow. I am helping you because I believe in that future. Arya's voice joined them, speaking gently in Do-hoon's mind. She is right. The architects created many species, but humans were their final project. You were made to inherit their knowledge, to continue their work. Other species evolved alongside architect technology. You were built to master it. Do-hoon felt the weight of those words. He had always known he was good with machines. He had always felt that strange connection, that intuition that let him understand technology others could not. Now he knew why. 20 million credits left, he said, and probably 12 hours to get it. Tavik's guards will be watching every circuit. Nari smiled grimly. Then we find a circuit they are not watching. There is one more challenge, the biggest one. It happens at dawn, in the old engine room. The prize is 25 million credits. What is the challenge? Repair a ship that has been rigged to explode. If you succeed, you win. If you fail, you die. Do-hoon stood up. His body was exhausted, but his mind was clear. He thought of all the beings who had told him he was worthless. He thought of Arya, waiting faithfully in Crimson Hall. He thought of every human who had ever been looked down upon simply for being born on the wrong planet. "Take me there," he said. Dawn was coming, and Do-hoon had one last gamble to make. The old engine room was a graveyard of forgotten ships. Massive hulls rusted in the darkness. Broken engines lay scattered like the bones of dead giants. This was where the final challenge would take place. This was where Do-hoon would win everything or lose his life. A crowd had gathered despite the early hour. Word had spread about the human mechanic. Word had spread about the bounty Commander Tavik had placed on his head. Everyone wanted to see how the story would end. The challenge ship sat in the center of the room. It was a small transport vessel, old but functional. Or it would have been functional if someone had not filled it with enough explosives to destroy half the cargo bay. "The rules are simple," the announcer said. "Enter the ship. Find the explosives. Disarm them. If you succeed within 30 minutes, you win 25 million credits. If you fail, well..." He made an explosion gesture with his hands. Do-hoon studied the ship from outside. His instincts were screaming warnings. This was not just a difficult challenge. This was a death trap designed specifically for him. "Tavik paid them," Nari whispered. "The explosives are real, and there are probably more than they are telling you. This is meant to kill you." "I know." Do-hoon took a deep breath. "But I have no choice." He climbed into the ship, the door sealed behind him. The interior was dark and cramped. Do-hoon moved slowly, listening with every part of his being. The ship was wounded in ways he could feel but not see. Energy pulsed through hidden wires. Timers counted down in secret compartments. Death waited around every corner. He found the first bomb under the pilot's seat. It was connected to a motion sensor. Move too fast, and it would detonate. Do-hoon held perfectly still, studying the wiring with steady hands. Then, delicately, he disconnected the trigger. The timer stopped. One down. How many more? Arya's voice touched his mind. "I can feel the ship's structure. There are 6 more devices." "I will guide you." "Thank you," Do-hoon replied silently. "But how are you doing this? We are far from Crimson Hall. The bond grows stronger with time. Distance matters less than connection." Arya's presence felt warm, like sunlight. "You are not alone, Maker's child. You will never be alone again." With Arya's guidance, Do-hoon found the remaining bombs. Each one was more complex than the last. Each one required perfect precision to disarm. His hands did not shake. His mind did not waver. He worked with the calm focus of someone who had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. 28 minutes. 6 bombs disarmed. But Arya had said there were 7. "Where is the last one?" Do-hoon asked frantically. I cannot find it. Something is blocking my senses. Do-hoon, I am sorry, The ship shuddered. A new timer appeared on the main console, counting down from 60 seconds. The final bomb was connected to the ship's core. It was designed to be impossible to reach, impossible to disarm. Whoever had built this trap wanted to make absolutely sure Do-hoon died. 50 seconds. Do-hoon closed his eyes. He stopped thinking and started feeling. The ship was a machine, and machines talked to those who could listen. Where was the pain? Where was the wrongness? There, in the main power conduit. The bomb was hidden inside a component that should have been impossible to open without special tools. 30 seconds. Do-hoon grabbed a piece of loose wire and began working. He could not disarm the bomb in time, but he could do something else, something that no one expected. 20 seconds. He rerouted the ship's power systems. He turned the bomb's energy into fuel. Instead of destroying the ship, the explosion would charge its engines. 10 seconds. Do-hoon slammed the final connection into place and ran for the pilot's seat. 5 seconds. He grabbed the controls. 0. The bomb exploded. Energy surged through the ship. The engines roared to life. The crowd outside screamed and scattered as the vessel lifted off the ground, not destroyed but awakened, flying under its own power for the first time in decades. Do-hoon laughed. He could not help it. He had turned death into victory. He landed the ship gently outside the engine room. The crowd stared at him in stunned silence. Then someone began to clap. Then another. Soon the entire room was cheering, aliens and humans alike, amazed by what they had witnessed. The circuit master transferred 25 million credits to Do-hoon's account. Combined with his earlier winnings, he had exactly 52 million, more than enough. But there was no time to celebrate. Dawn had come, and Commander Tavik would be waiting. Nari met him at the exit. Her face was pale. Tavik has blockaded Crimson Hall. His soldiers are everywhere. He does not care about laws anymore. He is going to take the ship by force. Do-hoon's chest tightened. He had come so far. He could not fail now. Then we go through them, he said. They moved through the station as fast as they could, avoiding patrols and checkpoints. When they reached Crimson Hall, Do-hoon saw that Nari was right. Hundreds of Morath soldiers surrounded the building. Their weapons were raised. Their orders were clear. Commander Tavik stood at the entrance, his massive form blocking the door. "Human!" Tavik roared. "You have caused me enough trouble. Surrender now, and I will make your death quick." Do-hoon stepped forward, alone, unarmed. "I have the credits. The bid is paid. The ship is mine under both galactic law and architect law. You cannot stop me." Tavik laughed, a sound like grinding stones. "Laws are for the weak. Power is the only truth, and I have more power than you could imagine." He raised his hand. His soldiers aimed their weapons at Do-hoon. Then the wandering star spoke. Arya's voice echoed across the entire station, broadcast through every speaker and screen. "I am the last vessel of the architects. I carry their memories, their knowledge, their final message to the galaxy. For 10,000 years I have waited for one worthy to inherit our legacy. Today, I found him." The ship's hull began to glow. Light poured from Crimson Hall, brilliant and golden. Every screen on the station showed the same thing. Images from Arya's memory banks. The rise of the architects. The seeding of life across 1,000 worlds, the creation of humanity as their final gift to the future, their sacrifice to save the galaxy from a threat that was coming. "Humans were not accidents," Arya continued. They were not primitive newcomers. They were our successors, designed to continue our work, to protect what we built, to inherit all that we were. The Maker's child has proven himself worthy. He has passed every test, and now he claims his birthright. The light exploded outward from the ship. It washed over Tavik's soldiers, dissolving their weapons, pushing them gently but firmly aside. It was not violence. It was protection. The architects had not built weapons of war. They had built shields of peace. Tavik stood alone, surrounded by light, unable to move. Do-hun walked past him without fear. He entered Crimson Hall, where broker Celis waited with wide eyes. 50 million credits, Do-hun said. The payment is complete. Celis checked the transfer. His thin hands trembled. It is verified. The ship is yours, Park Do-hun, legally and completely. Do-hun climbed onto the platform where the wandering star waited. The ship's door opened for the first time in 10,000 years. Inside, lights flickered to life, welcoming him home. Nari climbed aboard behind him. Her eyes were filled with tears she refused to let fall. We actually did it. We did, Do-hun agreed. Arya's voice filled the ship, warm and happy. Welcome aboard, both of you. We have much work ahead. The architects left coordinates to other vessels, a hidden fleet waiting to be found. And there is something else, something they tried to stop, something that is waking in the void rim. Do-hun sat in the pilot's seat. The controls responded to his touch like they had been waiting for him. Outside, the crowd at Crimson Hall watched as the ancient ship rose into the air, its hull glowing with symbols that had not been seen in 10 millennia. He opened a broadcast channel. Every being on Nexus Station heard his words. My name is Park Do-hun. I am a mechanic from Earth's outer colonies. For 200 years, humanity has been told we do not belong among the stars. Today, I want you to know the truth. We did not come to beg for a seat at your table. We were always meant to be here. The architects made sure of that. He paused, looking at the stars through the ship's windows. Humanity is not asking for permission anymore. We are just getting started. The wandering star rose through the station's exit ports and into open space. Behind them, Nexus Station shrank to a point of light. Ahead, the galaxy spread out in infinite possibility. Do-hun smiled. He had spent his whole life fixing other people's dreams. Now, finally, he was flying toward his own. And beside him, Arya hummed softly, a song 10,000 years old, celebrating the return of the Makers at last.